Close Medical Library, I'm Billy Spakemon. Lovely to be back out playing live all over the place. I've lived all my life around here, so I think today what I'm going to do is take you on a journey back to when I was a kid and then sing you some songs that are relevant, that come from my life, but also from collecting stories from family and stuff like that. So we've got to go way, way back, probably nearly 70 years. To 8 Portway Road in Aubrey, which was my Nana Paul's house. And that was the first 5 years of my life. And it's quite strange, really, because other than going down to Swindon Town when I was 15 to play football for 4 years, I've never lived more than 3 miles from where I was brought up, really. And there was like a little community of Eel Street, Little Eel Street, a bit of Portway Road, and a bit of Church Bridge. And it was probably in my 40s when I decided, it was after my dad died really, my dad died and some sort of light bulb moment come, and I had to find out who I really was as a person, as a black country person. All through life you tend to amend the way that you talk, and you forget a lot of the things that happened when you were tiny that were really important and that moulded you into who you are really as a person. And so I started on this journey, and it started really by me talking to my immediate family, my aunties and my uncles that were still alive, my cousins that were still alive, and reverting back to experiences they had when I was a kid, and then trying to reassess how that has affected me as a bloke, really. And the first thing that happened was, I thought, well, I've had 2 voices all my life. I've had the voice that I grew up with when I was 5 years of age till I was about 11, and then a voice that you change, and I still change it. Mostly know how to respect for folks so they can understand you if you're off the area or if I'm at university talking to the students, because otherwise they wouldn't understand a word that I said. But then there's my voice, the voice that I was given when I was little, and that voice was influenced, and not only in Portway Road, but also when we moved out to Portway Road and up to the Cape Moor estate. It was the first really council estate that was built after the war, and we moved up there. But all of the community was an insular community. All I knowed in Portway Road was that little community. Sometimes you went up to the market. West Bromwich was miles away. You might go there once a month to go to the market. So you were surrounded by voices that were the same as your own. All my folks worked at Accles's. All my aunties were on the lathes, my dad's was in the tube drawing or one of the departments. So you never really got to understand that there were different people. And that happened and continued when I went on to the Cape Moor. Because the Cape Moor really was Portway Road and a few roads around it, moved en masse, and all of my aunties bar one lived on the Cape Moor estate, except for my Auntie Joyce, who well, they'd call them flats then, wouldn't they? She moved to some flats at Whiteheath that are still there. And we used to brag our mum some at Saf because we thought it was posh to live in these flats. And we want to go and see Auntie Joyce, I think it was on the 9th floor or something. And we just thought it was really strange. But it was the only one of our aunties that really didn't move on the Cape Moor. So again, you were like enclosed in this really insular community. Not only culturally, but also in terms of voice. And I think when I was 40 years of age and I decided to go on this journey, I understood that that was really my inner voice, and I wanted to start and use it. So I started to write stuff. I'd always written stories, always written poetry, not really songs, but I come from a singing background. So I started to write in my language, in the Black Country dialect, but a version of where I growed up. Because if anybody knows the Black Country, every town is different. Every town has its own identity, every town has its own pride, every town has its own mannerisms and words that it uses. So the way that I spoke was different to somebody in Cradley or Lye or Tippern, and you had to be very careful of that. And as I've grown, I've sort of incorporated all the places that I've been and performed at in order to have a sort of more even black country language. But even now, Black Earth, Cradley Earth, Gornal, where they talk really, really fast, you can immediately identify with where they're from. But it was really important to me to then understand that really I was a black countryman, and that's where since then, probably 25 years, that's where I've been. And that's, if anybody asks me where I'm from, if I go abroad, where are you from? Are you from, where in England am you from? Don't say Brummagem or anything like that. Say I'm from the black country, and they go, well, where's that? And you go, well, it's this like Bermuda Triangle that's just outside. Well, why don't you say you're from Brummagem? Because I am a Brummie. We're totally different. We think different. We do things different, and our pasts and our heritage is different. And I think the stuff that I do acknowledges that to an extent. Some of it is quite serious. Some of it is just picking up stories and then embellishing stories. And hopefully, you'll enjoy some of them. But I want to do one. I'll finish with one. I'll start with one and I'll end with one that sort of encompasses part of that journey. And this is a song I wrote really to acknowledge my family and my mum and my dad. And a person called Saleskin Jones, who I'll tell you a lot about during the next hour. Saleskin Jones was my great-granddad. And he was a boatman in Aubrey, but he'd long since passed before I was born. But now I know that Saleskin Jones is part of me because from what people have told me and stories have told me about him, you understand that it really shows you how to see the world. Your past shows you how to see the world now and how you look at that world and perceive the world. So I suppose this is Black Country Boy. Me father were a steel man, my mother worked the laths. Great granddad were a boatman, and his spirit still remains. The rhythm beats we in our bones, and the hammer smashes down. From Dog Kennel to Raleigh-Bonk, I look across the ground. And the turnpike's brung we all together inside Summit Stair. Aubrey boy, I catched a thread, born in song and words. Been tracing back me kith and kin, been casting out a net. Black country boy, I kick the case ball, and now I sing on there. Black country boy, all the mothers, fathers, daughters, son, on this land I'll proudly stand, a boy now to a man. Black by day and red by night, caught in Rob Perry's eye. The canvases are working classes, no man can deny. Me, I'm just a simple man, been catched by history. So I sat and writ me songs, and now I brung to all of thee. And the turnpike brung we all together inside Summit Stair. Aubrey boy, I catched a thread, born in song and words. Been tracing back me kith and kin, been casting out a net. Black country boy, I kick the case ball, now I sing on there. Black country boy, all the mothers, fathers, daughters, son, on our land I proudly stand, a boy now to a man. My father were a steel man, my mother worked the laths, and great granddad were a boatman, and his spirit still remains. The rhythm beats we in our bones, the hammer smashes down. From Dog Kennel to Raleigh-Bonk, I look across the ground. Black country boy, all the mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, on this land I proudly stand, a boy now to a man. Black country boy. There's a strange thing about Portway Road, Aubrey. Obviously it was renovated many years ago. Knocked it down and built Lime Farm Estate and Cakemore and other estates. But it's very strange because I live just off Portway now. And very often I go up on top of Rowley Bonk and I'll come back down, cross the Wolvo and walk down Portway Road. And it's probably one of the strongest memories, one or two strongest memories. And as I pass it, they actually move the road across Churchbridge. But as I come to the point where 8 Portway Road would be, and my daughters will verify this, I'll say to them, there's 8 Portway Road. And they'll go, Dad, how do you know it's there? And I'll say, because I can smell warm milk going on to puff wheat. Because our nana used to, before the kids went off to school, because a lot of them, my cousins went to Good Shepherd, and I'd be with my nana, because I was under 5 then. I'd pour warm milk on puff wheat, and I can still smell it when I pass that place, and I can guarantee if somebody had a map and mapped 8 Portway Road, it'd be exactly where I put it. And the other than really the tales that we got when the big uns had come on, they'd walk along the cut from Loudtown, from Ackles's, and they'd come up to me Nana Paul's, and they'd have all the fiddle there, like a big basin of broth, because they'd come on for the dinners, and I'd be sat on the red quarries, and then you'd start to hear all the stories, and you'd be like a sponge then. They'd all come in, but you wouldn't realise until later, and it was like 40, 45 years of age, and I was thinking, I remember that, so I've got a fun out about that. And my Auntie Glad was the eldest of all the sisters. She lived till she was 96, and on a Sunday morning, she lived at 28 Oakdale Road, and a Sunday morning I used to go up, and I used to stop there, and I'd say to my Auntie Glad, and if you growed up in the Black Country, you'll know this, if you lived in a back-to-back, you had a room that was like the work room, the family room, and then you had the best room, and the best room you were allowed in until Sunday night. And my granddad Murray was a big, tall Irishman, always wear the blue suit, black hair with a shock, I mean he was quite frightening really, shock of white hair down the middle, and he'd stand after everybody had their fiddle at like peaches, you'd have peaches and cream, and then you'd have some bread and butter and maybe some salmon, and that'd be like your Sunday time. And then he'd stand by the best room, and everybody would come back from chapel, and he'd open it up and he said, right, we can go in the best room now. And we'd go in the best room, and it was only small really, and there was an old Joanna, an old piano in the best room, and he'd say, all right Eric, which was one of his sons, and my Uncle Eric used to play the Joanna and sing round the clubs with my dad and my Uncle Bill. They were called the Murray Brothers, and they used to sing round all in the clubs, and then all the little uns would squedge in on the floor, and you'd be sat on the floor, and all the big uns would be round then. There'd be about 30 odd folks, 40 folks in this room, and then they'd pull the sash up on the window to the outside, because all the neighbours would know on Sunday, the Murrays would be singing in the best room, and then they'd start to sing, and it'd just be wonderful, because they'd do all the old numbers and stuff like that, and then the neighbours would start collecting round the outside and the window, and then the neighbours would start singing, and that memory was so strong. And near to us, who used to sing with him, he was probably the eldest cousin, or eldest one, was our Jeff. And even then our Jeff loved the Black Country. And he moved up with my Auntie Frieda onto Fairway Road on the Cakemore estate. And by then he'd got into music in a really big way. And his 2 brothers had got into blues and jazz. And I was probably again 6, I think, when we moved up, 5, 6. And I'd say to my mum after we had our tea, Mum, can I go round Auntie Frieda's? And I'd say, And I'd go round Auntie Frieda's, and then again there was a back room and a best room, and our Jeff would be in the best room, and you'd walk into this room. There'd be guitars, ukuleles, banjos, and he could play anything. And I'd sat on the floor, and he'd start singing Pete Seeger songs, Bob Dylan, Joan Baez and stuff like that. But he'd also sing songs about the Black Country. And many, many, many years ago, there was a song that he wrote called Saleskin Jones about my great granddad, and I found somebody that used to sing with him, Andy Castle in Alzoin, and he'd got a copy of this song, and I tried and tried and tried to sing this song, and I couldn't do justice because our Jeff's voice was just phenomenal. And I wrote a sequel to it that I'll do right at the end called Aubrey Man. But it was the importance of the environment that I was in, really, at the time, when I was 5 and 6, that sort of not only moulded me as a person, but moulded all my musical tastes. And when I started that journey back, it was quite obvious that I was going to start writing about the Black Country, and I was going to start singing about the Black Country. And my Auntie Glad was like the encyclopedia of stories. And this next song is from a story that told me, really. Whether it was true or not, I don't know. And it's like the first rap song that was ever written, really, by this bloke in Aubrey. And it's about drink and getting drunk. Now, I'm teetotal, but I still love singing this song, and I loved it when she told me about it, because it was about this bloke called Eli Wallace, who was a furnaceman in Aubrey. Now, if you work the furnaces, you know that when you finished your shift, you'd have probably lost 3.4 pints of water. And he'd come along the cut towpath and he'd come off of Churchbridge, and right on the corner were a pub called the Traveller's Rest. So he'd go in the rest and he'd sink a pint. Now, I don't think, or I've had it on good authority, that the beer war as strong then as you get now. But then there were 9 pubs in Portway Road from where he were to his home, and he'd go in every one and he'd have a pint in every one. Not drunk. And there were 156 points at pubs in Aubrey at the time. So 156 pubs in one town. So just think how many pubs there would be through the whole of the Black Country. Because if you were down the mines, if you worked in the factories, if you were in a furnace, you needed something to quench your wazzing, your throat at the end of the day. And he would go in every one. He would go into every one, he'd order a pint, but then he'd listen to what the other folks asked for, because they'd just say, can I have a pint of beer? Can I have it? They'd have like nicknames, and in the language department at Aston, they were really fascinated, because they said, well, where did that come from? Where did that come from? And they call them Idiolex, and they're like little words that are only used by certain little groups of people, not generally, but like nicknames and something like that. It's very similar to that. So he'd sat there and spend ages writing down all his words. And then on a Friday, everybody's too young here to remember, but you used to get a brown packet with your money in, because they used to do bank transfers or anything. And then the blokes would have it in the back pocket, and they'd finish the shift and they'd go and they'd think, I'll just go in for an half. So they'd open it up. And then by the time they got home, they'd spent all the housekeeping money, you know, and there's probably half bladdered. And then they'd get chucked out on the pub, and Eli would be waiting outside for the terminology that was used for him being drunk. Now, there's a tradition, a very strong tradition in the Black Country of storytelling and song. And again, Sunday nights, after you'd been to chapel or church, you'd go into the smoke room, which was male dominated. Only men went in the smoke room, unless you was my Auntie Joyce, and then there was a bit of an eruption, and I just used to walk in and defy me granddad and just stand there and try and drink a pint of beer. And he'd pale as sick when I come home. I shouldn't be in the smoke, it's only the men in the smoke. And then just go back and just take it again. But anyway, there'd be a cheer in the corner, and then they'd say to whoever it was, Bill, going to sing a song, and he'd stand on the chair, sing a song. Well, Eli was famous, and he'd get his best bib and tucker on, and he'd go up. This one Sunday, he goes in, Eli, my old son, come down here. The cheers are waiting for you. Can we have a story after? And he goes, no, I ain't telling no stories tonight. And I go, Eli, every Sunday I tell you a story. And he goes, I ain't telling you a story tonight. I am gonna do a song about drink and getting drunk. And it's in the rhythm of a rap. So all these folks now, like Stormzy and all them who do rap music, it was done years ago by this bloke, Eli Wallace in Aubrey. And it's got a beat to it. So if you want to clap along, if you've got, if you've got rheumatism, get your Ralgex out, do anything you want. But it's got a beat. And then just listen and see if, the Babs won't be able to know what I'm on about now, so I do apologise. We'll do a translation for you. But see if you can remember any of the terminology for drink and getting drunk. Afters, drop a gold lotion, guzzling, tap lash, watch your whistle, supper sunshine. 11 o'clock, good trot, woman round a barrel, yo. Suck the monkey, shut it down and have a drop of wine. Mickey's monkey, pig's ear, axe back smackers. Drop a gold cocktail, it's a wet for a penny. Mother's titty, all a leg, bezel and a belter. Out to see the monk, tamper ramper, goes as any. Have a drop, have a drop, have a drop or two. All your blokes and wenches, it's your history coming through. Have a drop, have a drop, have a drop or two. What you was in sup it, it's your history coming through. Have a drop, half cut, 3 shades to the wind, young. Well oiled and young Kyloid and Blotto was a bobella. Legolas, pioid, plaster smushed and sealed, young. Diddly pickled as a newt, that's the way it gets you. You smoke the bomb, it's happening. Hips are stewed astound and tart bladder, tart and on. Had enough and addled. Blind and sozzled, all he's had a crooked elbow. I've got to have a skinful. Get your rattle, just have a drop, have a drop, have a drop or two. All your blokes and wenches, it's your history coming through. Have a drop, have a drop, have a drop or two. Just what you was in sup it, it's your history coming through. Down a sucker after shift and foul your fiddle, take a lift. What you was in sup it up and then you take your hook home. And afters, drop a gold ocean, guzzling, tap lash, watch your whistle, supper sunshine. 11 o'clock, good trot, drum around a barrel, suck the monkey, shut it down, have a drop of wine. Mickey's monkey, pig's ear, axe back smackers, drop a gold cocktail, it's a wet for a penny. Mother's titty, all a leg, bezel and a belter. Out to see them on, tamper ramper goes as any. Drinking, getting drunk. Folks will say to me, well, how come if you don't drink, you can do the drinking songs? Well, you don't have to drink to know all the terminology, don't you? I mentioned my great-granddad, Salskin Jones, and I forgot to mention my Nana Jones, because Nana Jones, Salskin Jones was a big man, really big man. Used to shovel, 16 size shoveling the coal onto the boats to take it everywhere, or the tar. Nana Jones was only a bit, about 4'8", and he was a working boatman rather than a living boatman, so he had his boat at one of the wharfs, Element Wharfs or Caggies or whatever, Clayton's Wharf, but he lived on Churchbridge, and they met many years ago in a place called Engine Street in Langley, on the Pump House Bridge, and she was devoted to him, so he finished the end of the end of his trip, and he'd come up off the church bridge and they'd be waiting there by the door, and then my auntie Glad, then who'd be his granddaughter, had come round because I loved her granddad, and he'd say, go and fetch us 2 ounces of twist from the shop. Well, if you don't know what twist is, it's like black tar, and they used to chew the black tar and then they'd spit it out, and in the pubs they had little things called spittoons. And so that's everybody, all the blokes would be chewing it, spitting in the spittoons. And one of my Auntie Glad's jobs was, my nana worked at Traveller's Rest at about 3 o'clock in the morning, cleaning up from their last night, and then a walk to Arborn, and they were in service to a doctor in Arborn. But Auntie Glad used to have to go here before they went to Good Shepherd School in the morning and clean out these spittoons. Now, if a black dry mass, and they've got to scrape it out and throw it away and stuff like that, and then polish them up ready for the night. And so he'd have this, and then he'd lie on the squab, he'd have his broth and some fittle for supper, and then start telling her a story. And he'd tell her the story of when they first met on the bridge by the pump house in Langley. So this is like a little story about how they met. The door was shut on the house on Church Bridge, and the wench gets out and pulls a shawl round her shoulder because there's a cold wind coming up off the cut. It goes down to the towpath and starts walking along, and I don't get far, and Caggy Stevens is there louding about. for the next day. "Hello, Nana Jones," he says. "Are you all right?" And he says, "Yes, I am, Cag." And he says, "Don't you want me to walk with you?" Because he knew where they were going, you see. And he went, No, I'll be fine. You get on with your work, get it loaded, ready for tomorrow." And off it goes. And it carries on, and there's just a coming up Tap Bank. And this is a young lad coming the other road, and it's a grandson. He's been out having a pint with his mate down at the Model in Langley. He comes up, "Hello, Nana," he says. "Do you want me to walk with you?" "Nah," he says, "I'll be all right. You'll leave me on my own." And so it carries on. Now it gets up to Engine Street, and it looks down, and there's no lamps, no light or nothing. It's as black as cow, but hooray for it at all. And it walks all the way to the end of Engine Street. And as it stands on the bridge, just by the pump house, the moon comes out, and it shines down on the cut, and he remembers the first day. The lockman at the pump house gates will tell me where they been. I stand at the days of 10 and I watch them tumblers rolling in. Come on home, me loving man, come on home. You've been away all day and your wassing's dry. Have a drop, sleep under Aubrey moon. I have steered the cuts all the life, and I've been here for you, upon the bridge at Engine Street, where we kissed so long ago. Ah, come on home, me loving man, come on home. You've been away all day and your wassing's dry. Have a drop, sleep under Aubrey moon. A simple man, a simple life. Roll away, lift the blade and tie the rope. Roll away. And now it is I'm long since gone, and I am all alone, and the moon it shines down on the cut to the place where it begun. Come on home, me loving man, come on home. You've been away all day and your wassing's dry. Have a drop, sleep under Aubrey moon. Ah, the lockman down a pump house gates, gonna tell me where they been. Stand at the days of 10 and I will watch them tumblers roll on in. Come on home, me loving man, come on home. You've been away all day and your wassing's dry. Have a drop, sleep under Aubrey moon. You've been away all day and your wassing's dry. Have a drop, sleep under Aubrey moon. I told you about moving up to the Cake Moor, and it was no different really, because you were still part of that insular community, and your day really come in contact with anybody other than the doctor who spoke any different to you, really. Everybody was, you go around the shops, they were the same as you know, everybody at school were the same as you, and really, and your day talked to adults. So when the doctor come, say you was ailing a bit, and the doctor come, you know, he'd say, right, Mrs. Stakey, what's the matter? And your day saying it, he said, oh, it's this and it's this with him, and don't speak to the doctor, and if he asks you a question, leave it to me and all. So, although he spoke differently, he was like from a different planet, he was from a different world, and your day really understand why he was that, why he wore the same as you, and it was really strange. But then when I went to grammar school, I went to Aubrey Grammar School, and it was an eye-opener really for two reasons. One, off on our, we were fairly poor, and the other was, there was these folks that spoke a different language to me. The teachers you could accept because teachers was again from a different world than we were. But there was like lads my age that were like, we've got geography next. Let's go down the corridor and we're going to have our dinner. Well, we'd say the folks on the camp, we'd say we're going to have fiddle dinner time, so we're going to get in the queue. And sorry, what did you say? So there was this like, and I go to my dad and I say, there's lads there that don't talk proper. And he goes, where do they come from? He went, well, Harborne. And he went, well, they're just from don't worry about it. But what was the eye opener was they used to call we the council lads, the council boys. And one of the reasons I found out that we wore well off is if you don't have enough money for your uniform, you used to have something called a provi check. Now people might know what a provi check is. Well, I thought, because we went to Adley's in Aubrey, where you got your uniform was, we'd go in and my dad would say, yeah, can you just measure him up for a blazer? And you have a blazer. Trousers, can you put socks on? And then he'd rip a check out this book and write the check, and I was thinking, whoa, we are well off, he's got a checkbook, my dad's got a checkbook. And of course you tell all your mates and that. But what they did at the grammar school is they would announce at the beginning of each term who'd got a stand in for the headmaster's office to get your privy check, because you'd used all your check. And it'd be like, Durkin, so-and-so, by the headmaster's office, privy checks. Well, these posh folks knowed what it was. And this one day, this one come past and he went, poorer then, aren't you? And I went, what are you going on about? Can't afford your school uniform. And I went, yeah, we got a checkbook. And he just like laughed. So I went to him and I said to me dad, am we poor? He says, why do you say that? I said, well, this lad at school says we're poor, but yeah, I've got a checkbook. And he went, sit down, son, I'll explain to you about life. And that's when he explained, nobody's any better than you, nobody's any worse than you, you treat everybody the same, and it's his failing, not you. And it was a real eye-opener to me. And also, one of the things that happened when I was little, I was really concerned about how tall I were, because I was only a bit, and it was a very late grower. And my cousins would come and they'd be younger than me, but they'd be taller than me. And then I'd go out on the patch, or I'd be to school, and there was me teaching, everybody was taller, and it used to get my goat really, because my brother was quite tall, the bigger one, and the one that I got, the middle one, he was like catching up on me, and he was young. So I thought, I'm having this out with my dad. And he was on the 2 till 10, the Jedmon shift they used to call it, and down at Accles's. And I knowed that he would be back about 10 past 10. So we was all upstairs in the bed, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. And I could hear his hobnail boots, because they used to put them metal studs on the shoes there, and I could hear him coming up the close. I thought, that's it, so I squedged out of bed, goes on to the bottom step of the wooden hill, and he drops the latch and he comes in. What you doing there? What's the matter with your face? Mizzling. He says, look, it's after 10, I want my fiddle and climb to Jeff, and you're home at school tomorrow. And I went, Dad, I've got to ask you something. And he says, what? He says, well, I'm really sort of worried about something. He says, well, look, come in the front room, best room, and explain to me what the problem is. And this is what I told him. Now, the ladies might not know, but I have to use a word in this, and it's cack, and it's poo. In the black country we call it cack, but it's poo. And it's very, I think it's one of the most beautiful words in the world, because if you think about dialect, and not just ours, it's very, very eloquent, because it's more lively than English. I mean, what would you sooner call your pet, a whammel or a dog? A whammel is just a fantastic word to use, eh? So I just love it and embrace it. So anyway, this has got cack. Davy Elliott's taller than me. I were 4.5 and he were only 3. And I asked me father why should be. He said, son, he stands in Osmuck. Osmuck, why, what done it do? Well, that an 18 grotty stew. His old wife's tales I've spake to you. I went out to try me luck. Like a runner bean, the shoot it grows. I could explain, nobody knows. Standing in Osmuck soon would show, but I bet you don't believe me. I climbed the bunks to try me luck. I passed old Saleskin down a cut. None boys osses, only ducks, so I squedged some in me bucket. I went to and I begun was in. Don't tell me that's khaki I'm standing in. Go and tell your father it's his sin. So I went and told me dad. And he said, yo, take your boots off, wait until your mother here comes home. Yo, take your boots off, wait until your mother here comes home. And then he said to me, Billy, do you wear it, son? You will always be out to look. But I went in the carsy right fed up, but soon it all had changed. 'Cause done you know by time was 6, I was taller than Dave, do you know my trick? Hanging off the brewers, holding bricks, and I felt 10 feet tall. 'Cause like a runner bean, the shoot I'd growed, I could explain nobody knowed. Standing in a smoke and it showed, and now you've gotta believe me. And it's true. Sometimes I tell a story and they go, is it true? And I go, well, that's for you to decide really, not me. I'll just tell the stories, I'll just sing the songs. It don't matter. I think we've got time for, I'll do Aubrey Man to finish with. If you don't mind, these two lads, I'll tell you about these lads. These are the Musketeers, and this is me. And for about 6 years now, well longer than that, but for about 6 years we've worked with Russell's Hall and Black Country Radio. I do a programme on the Hammer and Chain Show. And we work with Russell's Hall, different units, raising money for charity. This year it's the neonatal unit and the Babs unit. And we're just out on the streets and we organise events and stuff, and folks put the coppers in. And somebody said to me the other day, well, why don't you just go on Just Giving? And talking about heritage, I looked at this bloke, and to say, sometimes in Alzoin on a Saturday when I'm busking outside dancers, and then a little kid comes and puts his pocket money in, or last week an old lady come and she's got a polythene bag full of pennies that she'd had out the bathroom. And I said to this bloke, maybe it's my working class background, but my dad worked for every penny and my mum worked for every penny and my family worked for every penny. And I want to know, and I want to look at everybody that puts a penny in my bucket, and I want to listen to the stories. And maybe we won't make as much money as we would on Just Giving, but I know for a fact every penny that goes in my bucket, there's a story with it. And I think that's important for me. And these lads just give up the time, and we go all over the place. Gather Cafe in Dudley. Sunday we're down Starving Rascal in Brettle Lane. We do 7 Stars once a month. We have cricket clubs offer us venues and that. So if you got any coppers when you finish, there's a bucket there. Don't matter if it's a penny, don't matter if it's 5p. They all count, and they do change people's lives. They really do change people's lives. We had people off the Georgina unit come and say, you know, we're really grateful for what, and we control the money. We know exactly what we're going to buy with that money for the children's unit this year. They've already told us what they want. But back to me. We've probably got time for a couple more, most definitely. But I'll probably tell you a couple of stories about me when I was a bab, because I was a varmint. If anybody knows what a varmint is, a ruction, a varmint. And my oldest brother don't really speak to me. And I'll give you a couple of examples, really short examples, because I spin a yarn that goes on for ages, really. And the couple of reasons why, I was a ruction, and I used to love climbing drain pipes, scrumping, if anybody knows what scrumping is. If you don't know what scrumping is, what we used to do is we used to go over the hostel, which was the back of the estate, and it went on to the Wolverhampton Road. Well, all of the houses on the Wolverhampton Road were posh houses, big houses, and all of them had apple trees in the back garden. And if you went scrumping, you'd have like an SAS team. So you'd have climbers that were really good at climbing trees. You'd have catchers that would be underneath the apple tree and they'd drop the apples down. And you'd have watchers that would be by the fence, looking at the window, keeping watch in case anybody come out to catch you. We was never catched. So I'd be like scrumping, shunning up fences, I don't know, jumping off scaffolding, and you'd come home, and he would be in the outhouse with a sparrow, putting elastoplast around its wing. He was like David Attenborough, you know what I mean? And he did things like go fishing at Tipford Pond with a stick out of my granddad's allotments and the bottom out my mother's tights. And he'd take me with him because my mum was at work and Mrs. Sketty used to look after me, might be somewhere else. And I'd just throw bibbles, like he's like, Rod would be there and he was patiently waiting for a gudgeon or something. And I'd be throwing bibbles because I was bored to death. And him and Peter Skett, this is the gospel truth, him and Peter Skett once got that fed up on me and they tied me to a tree around Tifford Pool. And when I went home, I told my mother, and I said, well, you must have been playing up and give me a lamp, another one, give me a lamp. Because if you got caught with anything, that was it, you'd go on, wouldn't you, tell your mother, and then you'd get another one, wouldn't you? But the two things that I did, this is only two of many. One, you know, the rag and boom man used to come and you'd take your clothes out and you'd either have a balloon or a goldfish. Well, he had this goldfish and he put it in this bowl and he always used to say, if he went out without me, don't you touch anything of mine while I'm out. Sat there at the kitchen table. Mrs. Skett will be round if you want anything. Just read your comics the way I belong. And that was like red rag to a bull to me. So the first thing I did, one a minute, he goes out and I've like read the dandy about 46 times and I'm getting really irritable. And I sort of looked at the goldfish in the goldfish bowl and I thought, I wonder how long goldfishes can last when they're out of water. So I took it out and I put it on the draining board. And then Princey come for me to go and play, like kicking the case ball against the wall. So I goes out, kicks the case ball against the wall, come back, and the goldfish is like all bent double like that. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? So I just plonked him back in the water, and he like, it's too late then, he's just floating on the water. Big and comes back, has a look, and I said, mate, the goldfish has pegged it. He went, what do you mean he's pegged it? I said, I don't know, I was here reading my comic, and he just like floated to the top of the water. I got away with that one, but the worstest one was, he had this pet hamster that he kept in the shed. And again, he'd gone off, and I got fed up, and I thought, and he'd warned me this, because there was other occurrences, like I'll let Mickey the budgie out, and the cat next door had it, and stuff like that. But anyway, with his hamster, I thought, what I'll do is, I'll bring him inside, I'll make a little circuit for him out the pots and pans, and he'd play there and I can stop there and watch him. But we had an hole at our back door that went down past the lino, and the houses was like two lots of bricks, so there was a channel, and we was part of terrace, about 9 terrace houses, and I don't know where he did it, he like leapt, like one of these high jumpers, over one of the ponds and went down this hole, and I couldn't get him back, because he could have gone about like 10 houses down. So what I did is, really sillily, I left the cage open, but I locked the shed door and put the key back down, and then I climbed on the outhouse roof, and he comes back, my brother did, and he's like, and he's thinking, he says to Peter, I'll just go and check on me, and he opens the door. Of course, there's an open cage, but the shed's door's locked, and then he knows it's me, but he can't find me, and then all of a sudden he must have got on Peter's shoulders, and his little face comes up, and he goes, what have you done to the hamster? I don't know. He says, well, he's gone. I said, well, the fox has had it, and he said, so the fox can take the key from up there, open the shed door, open the cage, take him out, and then lock the shed door up and leave the cage open. And he piled 7 pounds of S's out to me. I mean, he was like a really peaceful kid. So I was like black and blue when mother come up, and then they gave me a pasting for doing it as well. So you can't win, can you? And that's why I was a varmint. Have we got enough time for Aubrey Man? Yeah? Okay. Aubrey Man. We'll go back to Aubrey Man. As I was saying, our Jeff was a major influence on my life. He was probably at least 12, 15 years older than me, and I'd sat there on me Auntie Frida's carpet in the best room, and I'd just listen to him play these songs, Joan Boyce, as I was saying, Pete Seeger, songs like that. And there was one particular song, and he'd sing it, and it didn't register at the time. But when I started this journey back to find out who I was, this song, Saleskin Jones, immediately come to me, and I started talking to my aunties and my uncles and everybody that I know. Do you know anything about our Jeff song? Oh yeah, that's your great granddad, he was a boatman, and that's how I started to fun out about him. And I says, do you know anybody who's got the song? And he went, nobody in the family's got it, but he used to sing with a bloke called Andy Casserly over in Alzoe. Well, I did this like Poirot, you know, detective thing, and I found out where this Andy Castley lived. Knocked on his door, and he opened the door, and he went, and he knew who I was. All right, Bill, I know what you've come for, because the family must have been in contact with him, his brothers, and said, Billy's after this. And he got a cassette recording called The Black Country Boy, and it's got loads of other songs, but he got Saleskin Jones, and I took it to my mate, and he processed it into a CD, and I sat really for months and months and months, and I learnt the words, but I was singing it, and I was thinking, this don't sound like Jeff, you know, this is, I can't sing this, it's just trying to be a tribute to him, I can't sing this, I'm going to have to write another song. So I wrote this song, Aubrey Man, and it's sort of 99% true about all the information and I got about my great granddad, but I wanted to acknowledge Jeff as a major influence on me and all them other people that, you know, have shaped my life really through my life. So I used Jeff's beginning of his song as the beginning of this. So this is Saleskin Jones, Aubrey Man. Aubrey is a risky place, you hear most folks spake. Y'all have come along with me, we'll walk down Church Bridge away. We watch away the veils of years, we peer through mist of time, and we found a different cut than the one of weeds and slime. For Saleskin Jones he lived there, a boatman coarse bold. His boat a bully painted bright, brasses shone like gold, and he moored by the cut bank, and he followed the cut folk code. But woe betide if any man standed in his road. Saleskin was a boatman, he come from Aubrey town. Saleskin was a boatman, he come from Aubrey town. Saleskin was a boatman, he come from Aubrey town. Saleskin was me great granddad, so when I sing this song, it will always make me proud. This Friday. Oh, me name is Tommy Jones, Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. And me name is Tommy Jones, Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. Me name is Tommy Jones, black country's in me bones, and it don't matter where I roam. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. I've been a tiller, been a loader. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. Been a tiller, been a loader. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. And it's the monkey boots I steer, pays enough to buy the beer, and the rest my wench I'll gear. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. I left just 13. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. I left me just 13. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. And I went off to the Great War. I banged a drum, they marched afore. I see 'em trapped there by the score. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. I come back awake pits and mines. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. Well, I come back awake pits and mines. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. But I die toil in the earth. Now I'm made the cut me baith, and now war free to graft hard work. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. All them loads are Clayton's Wharf. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. Aye, all the loads are Clayton's Wharf. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. And I sung bout songs as I'd go. Saleskin Jones we name you, 'cause you're a boatman through and through. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. Many a trip took through the nines. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. How many a trip took through the nines. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. Old wench was there for me, fiddle, grape pies and grow tea, just filling up old Saleskin's belly. Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. Now when it's time for me to go, Aubrey Man, Aubrey Man. When it's time for me to go, Aubrey Man, me and Mason spends the day down the model supping ale, and we look back at the sway, Aubrey Man. For in me life I have been blessed, Aubrey Man. In me life I have been blessed, Aubrey Man. I breathe the fresh air, spit the twist, and I can't buy a beast. By no better life than this, Aubrey Man. I breathe the fresh air, spit the twist, and I can't buy a beast. There be no better life than this, Aubrey Man. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it.